We've got the Wholesome One on the line talking Miami football with a lot going on around the nation with any program, but specifically with Miami, with Manny Diaz departing to Temple. That news conference coming up in a few hours. Recruiting, of course, with National Signing Day, the first of the National Signing Day installments, 6 days away, and the bowl game announcement about a week ago. One more note on recruiting. Anybody in particular that you're excited about, or maybe any narrative with a recruiting class thus far, with about 13 hard commits thus far, that you would like to highlight?
Anthony Solomon, the outside linebacker that is a St. Thomas alum. He plays there now. Please don't leave us. If you come across this, please don't. He's going to Michigan for a official visit this weekend with a lot of their big-time recruits, and Michigan is his dream school. So, and he was really close with Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz was his main recruiter also. He's also committed to the University of Miami out of his bio on Twitter. I usually don't want to become that type of guy where I'm, stalking guys on Twitter. But when you're media, you're media. And that's the way that we kind of keep an eye on kids and what they're thinking of. He's been retweeting a lot of Michigan stuff and kind of hinted on the Miami stuff. But he's one of those linebackers where, he's 6 foot, 192, so he's probably like 5'11", basically. But he would be our cover linebacker. He could be that replacement to a Mike Pickney that we have on our team now, but faster, because he's a former safety. So his coverage skills are a lot better than the average linebacker in Anthony Solomon. And he's a great blitzer also. So that guy and Jeremiah Payton, the wide receiver out of Georgia, he's been a top-notch guy, committed to us for a while. His roots go deep into Coach Mark Richt when he was at Georgia. And the last guy I'll bring up is actually Jafari Harvey, the defensive end. He's a 3-star recruit, but he's a late bloomer. He was listed at 6'3". He kind of blossomed up to I think he had a late growth spurt, because according to 247 Sports, he's listed at about 6'4", almost 6'5". So he's becoming one of those guys that later on down the line has grown, and he's really coming to his own as a pass rusher. So that's another guy that I'm pretty excited about. So this class is not really about the star system. I think Storm 18, which was the nickname that we had last year, which was filled with lots of 4-star recruits, and the 5-star recruit, Lingard, running back. I think that was what the spearhead of a lot of the big star names came from that class. This class, I think we could be a little bit more specific at going after pieces to where we're a little empty in the depth chart and bringing in guys who just want to come play fiery, hard-nosed Miami football, as opposed to star chasing. But, those are the guys that I would put out that I could say that are committed to us, or, quote-unquote hard commit. But what we're going through right now, it's not too many hard commits. But those guys have stayed solid for us.
So just to put some numbers to this particular class and the class overall, Jeremiah Payton is a 4-star. He's the number 11 wide receiver, according to 247 Sports, out of Neptune Beach, Florida. Anthony Solomon, who you highlighted, is another 4-star, number 10 outside linebacker, according to 247, out of Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas. And they've actually upgraded, according to 247 Sports here, Jafari Harvey to a 4-star. They've got him rated as the 14th rated weak side defensive end out of Vera Beach. 9 of the 13 players that are hard commits currently out of the state of Florida, with 2 out of Georgia. And actually, for it being a little bit light on the class ranking, a lot of that, as you well know, has to do with the size of the class. And while a lot of classes that we're comparing Miami to have hard commit totals of anywhere from like 18 to 22, Miami's down at 13. So that has a lot to do with the ranking more so than the quality or lack of quality of the players is the sheer number of players, because 7 of these 13 are ranked by 247 Sports as 4 stars. So
Right.
it's still a high quality class.
Right. Yeah, and like I said before, that's why being able to stack up back to back, or, you know, 3-peat, just like Clemson. You know, I don't really like to talk about other ACC foes much, but you have to respect what they have built. You know, because could you say before Dabo got there, if you were to name the top 20, top 15 all-time football powerhouses, would Clemson be a part of that conversation?
No.
Right. You probably have to push.
They'd be in the 30 to 40 range. Yeah, something in that range. Yeah. If this was 2008 and not 2018, yeah, we would have Clemson ranked probably 30th to 40th.
Right. But he took guys, as in Dabo Swinney, took a lot of guys who, you know, they might be 3-star recruits, but they just played a little bit more aggressive than what I thought would come from, you know, Clemson. And they came and took a lot of Florida guys. They really don't recruit South Florida as much as they recruit Tampa area, Orlando, and things of that nature. But I say all that to say he was able to stack up a whole lot of pretty good classes, also recruiting against Florida State, who was peaking at that time too. You know, they were splitting a lot of good players. It made for some really good Saturday night football. But when it came to Miami, we're just now being able to stack up quality recruiting classes, not just star chasing. You know, in 2014, we had a top 5 recruiting class under Al Golden. But then we dropped down to like 23rd the next year in 2015. 2016, we moved up a little higher with the trio linebacker back into the mid-teens. 2017, we did the same thing. It was like 11th or 13th. And then we popped into the top 10, you know, again last year. So being able to keep bringing in guys back to back to back, year in and year out, of quality, those quality 3-4-star guys to come create great competition on Green Tree practice field and in the indoor practice facility is what makes champions, Mark. You know, obviously I'm preaching to the choir because you know exactly what it takes to build these programs that people have, you know, year in and year out. But you have to be able to have competition on your practice field so that come Saturday nights, it's just a part of the program to go out there and adhere to the U on the side of your helmet, or you wear an Ohio State jersey. You know, you run out of a tunnel and onto a field of legends. You know, things of that nature, and guys respect that. And I think that's what we have to bring back here at Miami.
Here's a number for you, wholesome one. I just looked up Clemson's first couple of recruiting classes under Dabo Swinney. His first class was 36th. His second class was 27th. And then he started to jump up, but he wasn't bringing in the foundation of those championship teams, the first really good teams with the Sammy Watkins and Taj Boyds and those players that jumped into started to play in big bowl games, the Orange Bowl in 2013 and played LSU in 2012. Those teams, before they ascended to the national championship game, those were built on recruiting classes 36, 27 in the nation. And then he jumped into the top 15 to 20. But even then, he built those national championship teams not on top 3 classes, top 5 classes that were rivaling Alabama and Ohio State and those teams. He was building those on classes that were, down in the ranks of the 15 to 20 range, still really good classes, but he elevated those classes to championship form.
Right.
And his staff.
Right. And I think it's Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator
yes.
you had. I mean, how many head coaching jobs? And that's the only thing that will make me contradict the Manny Diaz, me being happy for Manny Diaz. Well, how was Dabo able to keep this guy for, a decade now?
Yeah.
And how many head coaching opportunities have popped up over the last decade? USC, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, all of these big-time programs. Ohio State had opened up in the last decade.
Yeah, Michigan.
Michigan has opened up. It's probably plenty of them. I'm not even thinking. The Miami job before we got Mark Richt, and he was recruiting this area. He could always just come down here and say, I would love to go toe-to-toe with you, your offense versus my defense in the ACC championship game. But he decided to stay, which makes me wonder, how we're not able to retain good coaches when we get them. They always leave us. But Christian Wilkinson, the defensive tackle, 42?
Yes, Wilkins.
He was a 3-star recruit. He wasn't some number one defensive tackle in the country. Now, 90 for Clemson, 90 is escaping. His name is escaping me right now.
Cleveland Farrell.
That's the defensive end. Number 90, the 6'5", 350 dude in the middle.
Yeah, Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter, there we go. He. Oh my goodness. Now he was the number one and number two defensive tackle, because I remember he had Clemson in Alabama. I watched him commit on national TV, and I thought obviously he was going to Bama, but everybody doesn't want to be a part of that system. Just holding gaps. But I also want to talk about some of the guys back to recruiting that we're going after, and some people who I honestly think we have a chance getting, and some that we don't. If you don't mind that.
Absolutely, go to it.
All right. First off, wide receiver Jaden Hazelwood out of Cedar Grove High School in Ellenwood, Georgia. He's a 5-star recruit. He's the number one wide receiver in the country. We just made his top 5 with the likes of Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida State, and of course, University of Miami. Mark Richt has been recruiting this guy since he was in 8th grade because he knew he was going to be a great wide receiver. He came down to Paradise Camp, which is one of the best camps in the country, getting a lot of kids to come in from all over the country. It's invite only, kind of like the opening, but it's just for University of Miami guys to come down and practice with great wide receivers, be coached by guys like Reggie Wayne and Santana Moss and Michael Irvin, John Beeson. One time, him and Ray Lewis were coaching the linebackers. Could you imagine that? These kids being able to sit and talk and watch film with and go over film, because it's a 3-day event. You go over film with your coaches before you go back onto the field. It's non-padded, so it's different when it comes to offensive and defensive line, but you get to see guys in coverage. And Jaden Hazelwood came 2 years back-to-back to Paradise Camp and been the best receiver there both years. I think we have depending on how we close, and when I think back in history, Miami tends to do really well when it comes to bringing in like one marquee receiver. Because you got Stacey Coley, who was the number 3 wide receiver in the country back in 2013. It was split between us and Florida State. Everybody's saying he was definitely going to Florida State. He signed with Miami. Jeff Thomas recently, number 4 wide receiver in the country, signed with us over Louisville. Kind of like closer to home for him and fit their system probably a little better than he did us, but as he felt originally. So Miami does pretty well bringing in big-time wide receivers at the beginning of the, in our recruiting classes, we do pretty well bringing in big-time wide receivers. But the most important recruit to me, if you could say Holloway, you get this guy and you just keep everybody else in your class, I'm going to say it's Evan Neal, number 8 offensive tackle, 6'8", 6'9" guy out of IMG Academy. One of the best left tackles in the country. But this kid plays the game with such technical aggression, Mark, if you get what I mean by technical aggression.
I do.
It's like, it takes me back to watching back when, back in 01, we had Mount 74. Off the top of my head, he wore 78 here at the University of Miami. He wore 74 for the for the Vikings.
74 for the
McKinnon.
Vikings.
74. McKinnon.
Bryant McKinney?
Yes, Bryant McKinney, yeah. Takes me back to a guy like that, to where it was like his pass blocking was great, but he could move people too off the line of scrimmage if need be in his run game, Bryant McKinney. It brings me back to that type of mindset when I look at Evan Neal. Because for him to be 6'8", 391, he doesn't look he doesn't have the gut. You know, linemen don't look like linemen anymore. It's kind of weird now watching college football. Aaron Donald has an 8-pack. That's
true.
Crazy.
It's true.
Then back early 2000s, even like the 20 teens, early in the 2005 to 2009, you still had linemen with guts. You watch Big Ten football, they might have a little jiggle on their stomach, but it isn't like how it used to be. Your guards and centers used to look like guards and centers. Now everybody looks like tight ends.
Oh, it's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah. You're right.
Well, this guy is 6'9", close to 400 pounds, but he doesn't look as a fat to muscle ratio. He looks well put together being in that program at IMG. He's the type of guy who can really help change the mold at offensive line here at the U. Because, a guy like Tyree St. Louis, he had a lot of off-season hype. But let's be honest, he didn't really show up to me this year. He kind of just did his job. This guy might not make the play as opposed to taking guys out of the game. Evan Neal does that multiple times throughout the season, just taking marquee defensive ends out of the game. But those are the two guys I want to talk about that I think going after them and putting all we have into guys like that will really help us.